Hello everyone and welcome back to our episode on Elden Ring Showcase. Alright, time for the first staff, and I'm no magic user, so I'll try my best. So the item of today is the Astrologer's Staff. We've pronounced that right, Staff of the Astrologers. The glintstone is embedded in the tip, enabling it to be used as a catalyst for sorceries. Sorcerers must be memorized first at a site of lost grace, and the staff must be equipped to cast them. So yeah, and of course there's no skill associated with this weapon at all. So, staffs. For stats for the Astrologer's staff here, we got, well, it's kind of redundant to talk about the physical, because there is a physical attack, but it's redundant. What we're actually talking about is, well, sorcery scaling. As you can see here, this is the important part, for those who are not versed in magic. So, not a bad starting one. Scaling wise, we can see that has a strength scaling for E, it's whoop-de-doo, and intelligence is a C. Not bad for starting. Alright, and to use it as a shield or a guard with, redundant. And to use it, you need a bit of strength and a bit of intelligence. It's your starting Astrologer staff. Alright. Talking about any real historical uses is redundant because these don't exist in real life. As it's more or less, you know, a glorified walking stick with a fancy crystal at the end there. But in actual use of, you know, if we're going to talk about magic back in the day and staffs, they generally didn't have giant crystal fixtures in them. It was usually from a more ancient wood, if you will, and usually embedded with brass to give it more majesty. But that changes depending on what culture and where you come from and you yada yada yada. In a sense, this is just an overglorified oaken stick with a handle protruding out of it for to assist with walking or even resting. Okay, moving on from that, animations. Yes, we're doing this. If you don't have any sorceries equipped, your character, you know, tries to use like a Neanderthal, and then proceeds to use it like a bashing stick, like a Neanderthal. And yeah, that's pretty good. Just destroy furniture with it. Yeah, there's no other animation. This is it. It's just a bash. Alright, now you actually get some spells in there. You got various spells of animations, but that all depends on what spell you're using. I'll not be covering them all, of course. We're simply going to have a handful of spells being used. Oddly enough, you can also use the staff horseback to bash people's heads in, though normally you would use the normal spell, which can also be used. Not all, but most spells. Alright, and in terms of using horseback and restrictions, usually anything that involves you moving around excessively during a spell, which there are a few. Okay, so if you didn't start as an astrologer or a magic user, you could find the actual staff for sale here, which is at the south side of the lake. More or less, I'll let people pass by him, but it's easy enough to get to. So yeah, of course I met him for the first time in this playthrough here, but he sells the entire set as well, clothing and all, as well as the astrologer staff, plus others, lamp, you get the idea. Okay, and here's the item fully upgraded. There's no alternate paths, there's no other, you know, infusements, it's just one simple upgrade. You can see the sorcery scaling is actually a lot higher than most would think. I understand that this weapon received a buff at some point, between when this game was released to now. And the scaling is now S tier. So, in terms of using staff and sorcery, it's kind of hard to get better than this. There is better options, but they ain't such a giant margin as you think. So yeah, this weapon definitely worth your time, despite it being the starting staff. Alright, let's use it now. You can see my poor abilities of a staff user. I don't really use sorcery all that much, so I'm more of a melee user. But I understand that this shit is powerful. Too many times I get invaded by someone using freaking sorcery and then one-shots me. Too many times. But yeah, against such sluggish opponents, this shit is pretty damn effective. Mind you, am I using it to its best potential? No. But some spells are pretty damn good, like that darn bow there. Man, if I just pump out a bunch of FP into my stats, you can just destroy opponents. Even the small glintstone, that's damn pretty good. You just stunlock a lot of enemies to death. And the daggers are also excellent. A lot of this stuff is just OP in my opinion. Like, look at that. That's the easiest way I ever killed that opponent. But that said, not really fast enough on the giant sword. You know, it's the most comfortable thing I got. That said, that sword is larger than any other melee weapon. Arguably. But I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that that thing is gigantic. But yeah. Overall, very powerful magic. I'm just not very comfortable using them. And some moves are truly extremely powerful. That said, should you bash opponents? No, it's not very powerful. And even against a clean rotten knight, this shit hurts. But the downside is clean rotten knight, oh, they are very quick. Very quick. And a lot of casting speeds are not quick. That said, it's all a matter of timing, and I just don't have the timing down, and I couldn't get it down for a review. Because, again, I'm a melee user. And even my entire YouTube career has been predominantly melee weapons. But these staffs are pretty decent, and in the past there's been weaponized staffs that are more blade than sorcery. And I expect even possibly with the future DLC we'll see more of those very same kinds of staffs. So, pretty damn good. Now, where it struggles a little bit is in PvP. For me anyway. Because getting timing down is difficult. Very difficult. I have a hard time actually fighting opponents with sorceries. Because I usually, myself in PvP, I take advantage of that casting window. Being just at a sweet spot, which is where I got this phantom sitting. Pretty much in that point where you see right there, if he charged me, he would have hit me easily. It's because of that casting time. So that's pretty much the kicker. Is you have all these abilities, you can keep your opponent away, but letting him in close for those bigger attacks generally means letting him within melee range. So, pros and cons of that. But that's in sorcery itself, not so much this staff. This staff doesn't do anything in terms of reducing or shortening, or about increasing casting time. It's all the same. I think I got the point across for the most part. But yeah, in the end, you'll see me just use this sword because I'm comfortable with it. I can almost understand its range pretty damn good. That said, I'll get you 2 Phantom fights. Someone who's significantly more of a threat. The Red Finger. As this guy's, Rivers of Blood is quite an exaggerated range. Like that, right there. I'd argue the range of that is the same as my Great Sword that I'm using here as Magic Great Sword. But yeah, in terms of what's better, melees or magic, I think it comes down to an individual. As a magic user, you don't have to rely on dodging nearly as much, as you're always keeping your opponent away if you're a good magic user. Not like me. Definitely not like me. But, yeah, if you're a melee user, you have to get good at dodging. Shields won't cut it endgame. They'll do it for most of the time, but unless you're some crazy YouTuber doing things like a shield-only run or something. But yeah, for the overall majority of the time, it won't work. You gotta get good at dodging, and if you're not good at dodging, you're a mage. Or an archer. Alright, let's move on to some pros and cons for the Astrologer staff. On the pros, well, it's pretty easy to get, purchasing or starting the game with. It also has extremely high scaling for a starter weapon. And has low stat requirements also to use, since it is also a starting weapon. So yeah, pretty good pros. On the cons, well, it has no special skill ability. That is the only con I can actually think of. To use this, stay the staff over others. So yeah, pretty damn good in that aspect. Like I said, I'm not sure what else I can use in terms of putting pros and cons. But anyway, let's move on to score, which, since it's a staff, I can't hold to the same regard as the other melee weapons. It only gets 2 categories. So for scaling, since it's one of the better ones, I'm going to give it an A. There's like barely a reason to use any other staff. There are better ones, but only by a smaller margin. For miscellaneous, I'm going to give that a B, because there's very little reason not to use the staff. It's light, it's easy to use, it's easy to get, so Not a whole lot of points going against it. So in terms of the staff category, it gets a B+. Pretty good starting staff, if I do say so myself. The rest of the catalog for staffs have a bit of their work cut out for them. And that wraps up the first staff being reviewed. Sorry to disappoint those people who don't really consider these as weapons, but they are the mediums to become another weapon. I understand that it's the spell itself that's the weapon, but the spell by itself is useless. You need the staff. And thus, that's what's being reviewed, because every staff is a little different. That's all for today. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Hope to see you guys next time. Take care out there.
In this world you've got to